Sir,
So
I'll to get it. I mean, if there is network issue, I'll to get the
no
record, sir.
issues, no issues. I will
Yeah.
send to you too. Don't worry. But just be there and try to catch up if you can. And if there will be any network issue, I will be sending to you.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Sir.
I will send to you. Don't worry.
Sir.
Be there. Okay. Lingesh, are you able to hear?
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will proceed with that. So public servants are likely to confront with the issues of conflict of interest. First of all, what is the key pointer here? Conflict of interest. What do you understand by the term conflict of interest? The question remains same, but it is in the context of public servant basically. So we'll have to highlight or italic this one also. So this is the point in question. Then second thing is, how does it manifest in decision making? How does it manifest in decision making? So there is conflict of interest, that is as usual as anything else in the administration, but how does it manifest? So it is asking that in decision making, what kind of manifestation of conflict of interest is there regarding the public servant? Then if faced with conflict of interest situation, how would you resolve it? So resolving it is a kind of, again, aptitude question. Exam will explain with the help of examples. So we'll have to see that examples we provide. And within 150 words, we'll have to write it. And we can get maximum 7 marks out of 10 marks also, 70% marks also. If we write well, if we are rationally writing it, if our examples are well, if our definitions are superb, if our understanding is very much there, then we can get 70% marks also. The minimum marks you should be getting is 6 out of 10. Otherwise, your marks will be not that much good. You will be not in top in particularly ethical scenario, ethics paper. So see here, it is public servant. I discussed with you guys that who are public servant in yesterday class. I will not go deeper into that. Public servants are basically those servants who are basically the government people. And government people are two types of people. And particularly within the branch of executive, we have three branches: judiciary, executive, and legislature. Within the executive branch, we have two kind of people. One is the government ministers, and another one is bureaucrats. But when we talk about legislature, there are another kind of public servant, but they are not liable for their work in the executive scenario. And who are they? They are MPs and MLAs, member of parliament, and MLAs when we are talking about the state scenario. So public servant means those servants who are liable for the services and damages. They are also accountable for the damages done to the public. But in India, the most of the scenario goes by the services delivery, not the damages done, because ours is a country where the bureaucrats have much more power and ministers have much more power, and they are not totally liable for their actions because constitution grants them much more power than any other country. So that we'll have to understand. But why it is necessary to talk about conflict of interest and what is conflict of interest? So first of all, why we will discuss about conflict of interest? See, if we are not liable under the constitution for our damages directly, particularly in the case of ministers, there is no scenario or no article where it is mentioned in Indian constitution that ministers will sign any document and be accountable for the bureaucratic actions. So who are responsible? Not even bureaucrats are responsible, but they are signing. They are signing the documents, they are having all these things. But now more and more public consciousness, more and more public hue cry, more and more active judiciary, more and more active legislature, particularly the opposition parties, the media, that is the fourth estate of the state, is causing this thing that at least legally at the superficial level, the beneficiaries are not only getting the services in the non-qualitative sense, only quantitative sense, but also in the qualitative sense, first of all. Then they should also be given the explanation or accountability for the damages done to them by the public servant. So that is the question, first question, legal question. Then second question is much more important in Indian scenario. As you know that India is a country of more ethicality and morality of public questions than the legality. And when we talk about legal recourse, all persons cannot take the legal recourse. So that's why conflict of interest is much more ethical question in Indian scenario. So when you confront with the issues of conflict of interest, why you have to take that question? Because it is the ethical responsibility, moral responsibility of public servant to be liable for the damages done to the people. Because if they could not understand their responsibility, I'm emphasizing the word responsibility, first thing. Second thing is responsiveness. Third thing is accountability. And accountability, I have always talked about two kind of accountability: internal accountability and external accountability. So when we are talking about internal accountability, it is the internal paraphernalia of legal rationality. Legal rationality means written kind of accountability. So whatever orders has been given, whatever policy has been made, whatever accounts has to be furnished, you will have to do it anyway. And one more question is the public question. The public will also check. That is called external accountability. Media will also check. That is external accountability. So these questions, the question of responsibility, the question of responsiveness, the question of accountability is must nowadays in 21st century democratic country. India, as per preamble of Constitution of India, India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So each question of these counts a lot because people are getting more and more conscious. Now, what is conflict of interest? See, there is two type of conflict. One is ethical dilemma. So what is ethical dilemma? When you have two options and both are appealing to you very much, that is ethical dilemma. So one, you cannot choose instantly. You have other option which is equally very fertile option for you. Then that is ethical dilemma. There, how to resolve the ethical dilemma? Through your legal question, through your ethical sense of responsibility, through your accountability, through your seniors, through your internal checks like conscience. All these things create some kind of answers for that ethical dilemma. It may be a tough question, but not that much tough like the conflict of interest. So what is the difference between both? You have to understand that. What is conflict of interest? So there is interest and there are several kind of interest. You can also refer to the last day class where I was talking about public interest, general interest. Okay. So when you have public servant, you have public question. So public interest is there. Then you have personal interest, what I was talking about. Then you have private interest. Then you have, interest at different levels. But when we are talking about public interest matters a lot. So public interest is supreme in government or governance. So when you have responsibility under the government system, you have to follow most of the time, you have to follow the public interest question. What is the public interest? Public interest are those interests which are fertile or beneficial to the public at large. So public servant are liable for public interest and they must do public interest questions most of the time. They cannot take care of private interest. What is the private interest? It is the interest of those bodies which are having some kind of self-interest. Means they may be having some business interest, they may be having some financial interest, they may be having some kind of interest which is not a larger question, but for that particular organization. But when we are talking about public interest, it means the public at large will be interested in that question. Like when we are talking about water sharing, that is public interest question. When we are talking about good air or environment, that is public interest. When we are talking about spectrum allocation, that is public interest. When we are talking about defense services, that is public interest. When we are talking about railways, we are talking about public interest. So those major flagships or flagship schemes we are talking about comes under the public interest. And why I'm giving that connotation? Because you can understand the examples also. Manrega. So getting the official desired level of employment to everybody, particularly at the village level, is public interest. Again, there are two types of conflict, as I told you. One is legal conflict in public interest, legal conflict in private interest, legal conflict in self-interest, legal conflict in different levels of interest. And there is one more conflict of interest that is related to moral or ethical responsibility in the public interest question. So when you are talking about a bureaucrat, let's say if they have to erect the road on particular section, and the minister tells him that you look that my people are benefited more than anybody else, then what is the question? The question comes of conflict of interest. Of what sense? Of private sense of minister, because he wants to get benefited, and public interest at large. So in the realm of Raj Dharma, in the realm of governance, you cannot give a iota of dot to people that you are not doing the things in public interest or larger public interest, even not for seemingly near term, but also for whole your life and after your career also. That conflict of interest question can come into open and your entire career damage will be there. So that's why public servants are likely to confront the issues of conflict of interest in different kind of dealings, public dealings, particularly the decision-making questions, policy questions, execution questions, public liability question, public allocation of contract questions. So there are several kind of questions, several kind of areas like you can talk about education, you can talk about health, you can talk about n number of things are there where conflict of interest can happen, and a decision making will be checked and questioned that this is done under the guise or premise of private interest, not the public interest at large. So that is the meaning and core of meaning of conflict of interest. So conflict of interest is that interest which is against the public interest, particularly seemingly confronting with the private interest versus public interest, or public interest versus public interest at large versus public interest at minority. Those questions can also come. But when that kind of question comes, ethical dilemma questions also comes. And within the paraphernalia of conflict of interest, you have ethical dilemma questions always. You always will find ethical dilemma under conflict of interest. Why? Because public interest is always connotable to ethical sense of responsibility and legal sense of responsibility. The legal sense may be very clear. The legal sense may be adopted, adapted, and performed very well, but there must be a question of ethical sense of responsibility also. Like, conflict of interest can happen when Adani or Ambani comes to your area and snatches the farmer's land. I'm just giving you example. Don't write the name of people, because these people are also as much important as any other people nowadays, because they are not only utilizing the public resources for Indian cause, but they are also creating businesses which are helpful for Indian scenario. So we cannot always brush off that all the businessmen are bad only. Maybe their motive is much more private interest, but public interest are being caused by them in the sense of new public management after 1990s. Please understand that the conflict of interest question has become much more fragile and much more important in the sense of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. That understanding you will have to write wherever the conflict of interest and ethical dilemma question comes. Okay. So these things you will have to. How does it manifest in decision making by public servant? Definitely dealing with contract, dealing with minister, dealing with public at large, dealing with superiors in your service, dealing with your colleague and juniors in service, all these places, your conflict of interest will come. Most importantly, when you are dealing with your private life and family life, and when you are dealing with your own public responsibility as an officer, then also you will got this conflict of interest question. Now, if faced with the conflict of interest situation, how would you resolve it? So resolving the conflict of interest is multifaceted task that you have to write. Multifaceted task, dynamic task, and it is ever evolving question also. So no two conflict of interest question will be same. And you don't have a bookish example of conflict of interest always. So you can have case studies. So first thing, you can go by the case studies at local level, national level, and international level and read from it and understand how to clarify the conflict of interest and ethical dilemma question. That is the first solution. That is the first resolution. Going by the case studies of the past, reading about it, learning about it. Second thing, resolution will come from the political vested interest versus bureaucratic vested interest. You always have to show that you don't have any vested interest in written also, in talks with public or public dealing also, and at public interest policy questions also. Three levels I'm talking about: policy level, ministerial level, official level. All three levels you will have to show that you don't have vested interest. You don't have any hands in glove position with politicians, criminals, or any kind of pressure tactics is not being holded by you. You don't want to get profit out of any of the dealing of outside relationships. That you have to write, that I don't want to make, and you don't have to write I. Particularly, you have to write that we can solve like this. So you will have to give demonstrative examples. So clarifying your position is one thing. Then third thing is code of ethics and code of conduct must be made mandatory for ministers and bureaucrats as well. And the oath must be more prominent than earlier and now. Then fifth thing you can write about the training part. The training must give you a demonstrative example of conflict of interest and how to solve that. Then mid-career training is necessary or regular career training is necessary. There you can also write about I got Karma Yogi platform, where you can be clarified time to time about conflict of interest, even if you are not going regularly for training. So these situations can resolve the conflict of interest. Then you must be a very emotionally intelligent person. At the same time, you must be a legal, rational person also. So what are the examples? These are the examples. But when you are coming with conflict of interest question, you can talk about banking scenario, you can talk about railway scenario, you can talk about army scenario, you can talk about legal scenarios, legal questions. So several levels conflict of interest is emerging. In the health, conflict of interest is there. Like you want to do, and you must remember that during the Indira Gandhi time, two type of things was very controversial. One was removing the poverty. So people was telling that it is not removing the poverty, it was removing the poor to show the good image of India only. It was not the proper sense. So it was only social engineering. This word is very important, social engineering. So when you do these kind of things, gimmicks, in the name of politicians and by the orders of politicians, definitely you will be in conflict of interest, because public interest is different. Public will be trying to talk about the major problems, not the minor ones, not the image building, not the greenwashing, eye washing. These are the words. Okay. Then second thing was related to the castration done by the government in the name of population control. So that was also the question. Similarly, nowadays also you have several conflict of interest in public health scenario. You have several public interest questions in the education scenario. You have several conflict of interest in the job scenario when everything is being privatized, liberalized, and globalized. So conflict of interest question will be always there. Narmada Bachao, there was conflict of interest. There will be always minority versus minority question also. That is also related to conflict of interest. But to solve a problem, all the organs of the government must come into one say. Like judiciary also have to clarify the position, legislature also, and executive also. Then only that kind of public interest will be sustained. But most of the questions are being dealt by and decision is being taken by executive side. That's why executive must give the reasons behind the interest and must show that there is no conflict of interest, no ethical dilemma, and the execution is done at the behest of good governance, nothing else. Not the vote bank politics, not the regionalization, not any kind of benefit which is outside benefits. So you can have n number of conflict of questions or conflict of interest questions, and you can solve those by giving your own ideas of how to resolve that. Some of them I have enlisted, more also you can write. So very pointedly you can give how to resolve, but understanding of the first part, you must write in totality. And whatever I have told you to understand what is the paraphernalia, what is the horizon of this question, because these questions are coming year after year. Conflict of interest, ethical dilemma, public servant, who are government servant. You just have to understand each and every word, nothing more than that. And you will have to understand what is the scenario, what is the context, what are the examples, real life example, demonstrative examples. And if you are a very commonsensical person, you will be writing very well. But writing, you have to do. Otherwise, you cannot write it within the words possible. Because you tend to write all the things you know. That will not sustain on the paper. You will have to write very emphatically on the paper, whatever you write, in the very, very good structure. Okay. Any question on this question? Like whatever I have explained to you guys?
Clear, bro. Very clear.
Yeah. So coming to next question now. Why should impartiality and non-partisanship be considered as foundational values in public service? See, as I have told you, when we see the syllabus here written in this bold letters, aptitude and foundational values for civil service, these are the foundational values: integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship, objectivity, dedication to public service, empathy, tolerance, compassion towards weaker section. So you have to mug these up very much. Then second thing, as I told you, that Nolan guideline or Nolan committee guideline, 7 guidelines or 8 guidelines, whatever they have given, most of them are here also. Some of them are extra. That are also the foundational value. And when we talk about second ARC fourth report, there are several things they have talked about. But when we talk about the foundational value, two things in Weberian bureaucracy also, two things are very important. That is impartiality and non-partisanship. Why so? Because a bureaucracy must be permanent in sense rather than impermanent like the ministers or like the politicians. So they may be getting elected this time, next time they may not be getting elected. They may get mandate in one way or another way. They may cannot get the mandate by the people. But bureaucracy has to stay. And that's why they will have to work with all hue and color of left wing, right wing, central wing, middle central, middle right, whatever kind of political things are there, they will have to be neutral. So neutrality, impartiality, non-partisanship are the core values or the core foundational values of bureaucracy that we'll have to understand. So we do not support parties. We support the public interest shown by those parties. And we support the causes made by the parliament and executed by the executive. So we particularly are not taking the orders of the political party, but we are taking the orders of the government decision. And government decision is done at the behest of the legislature. Nothing beyond that. You will have to understand that. That's why non-partisanship. Partisanship means what? We don't have to adhere to one party or another party. We'll have to be partyless. We do not support the party cause that Bhajpa, we are supporting BJP or we are supporting Congress. Whatever party is in power and whatever decisions they are taking under the very august conscience of parliament and cabinet, and then it is being moved to you, you will have to deliver that. Why so? Because no wrong decision can be taken by them when it is being checked by legislature also, it is checked by judiciary also, it is checked by every level. But at the same time, no illegal decisions you will have to follow at any case. If you feel that any illegal decision is being made, it is your august duty to freely and fairly talk about that. As Sardar Patel was talking about, that freedom to bureaucracy is very much necessary, and free and fair talk, free and fair mind is very necessary for bureaucracy to be non-partisanship. So there is also one opposite side of it that is called committed bureaucracy, which Miss Indira Gandhi talked about. So she was talking that if people are giving mandate to particular party, definitely the bureaucracy should be committed to the cause of that party. But it was severely opposed by every uh, learned person, and this is not the model we follow in most part of the world. So definitely non-partisanship is the way where the conflict of interest is less and less, ethical dilemma is less and less, and we serve the cause of constitution first of all, then we serve the cause of people and their problems, the public interest particularly, general interest particularly. So non-partisanship, that's why is very necessary to not serve one party or another party, because there will be ethical dilemma, there will be public interest question, there will be several, catch 22 situation with bureaucracy, that when the political parties are politicizing some matter, they are making some religious statement, they are making some kind of statement which is undemocratic, then there will be problems. Like our preamble is talking about sovereignty. So if they are not talking sovereignty and they are talking about some kind of agenda which is anti-India agenda, then there will be problem with bureaucracy, and bureaucracy will be very fragile at that particular point of time. Then socialist, secularity, dimensions of democracy, all these are in the question. If we are committed to parties, then definitely we will be losing the major premises of constitution. That's why non-partisanship is must, and until and unless we change the constitution, we cannot have the committed bureaucracy. So that's why should non-partisanship be considered as foundational value? Because socio-political context in the present time is very, very fragile. We'll have rights, we'll have public, you can say that public tranquility question is there, peace related issues are there. There will be like minority, majority versus question. They will be fighting. There will be like internal security question, there will be religious parameters, there will be secular parameters, there will be sovereign parameters, there are democratic, undemocratic parameters. So at that particular point of time, if a bureaucrat and bureaucracy as a whole or hierarchy as a whole has to speak freely and fairly to the ministers and to the public, then non-partisanship is must. That's why the public interest can be injected into the system. The systematic and systemic approach can be mandated into the system if we follow the non-partisanship. If we are following a particular party, our public trust will be waning. That's why it is the foundational value. Second thing, why is impartiality? So what is impartiality particularly? Being partial means what? Being partial means having to show bias towards particular party or particular person or particular question. But when we are impartial, impartiality means not favoring anybody. not being biased to anybody, not discriminating anybody. So impartiality, why impartiality is must? Because we are doing the execution. The question of execution is very, very fragile thing. If we are favoring one person over another, if we are not delivering the policies, mandated for the people, if we are not giving the right-based initiative to them, if we are not giving them whatever due to them, if we are not wiping their tears without asking their religion, race, caste, creed, sex, birthplace, language, then we are doomed in this nation of diversity, in the nation of dynamicity. So that's why impartiality is must while giving the services to the people, demands, being demands meet, and then, making a trust, public trust, viable public trust. Because as per Mahatma Gandhi, we are bureaucrats, businessmen, all the top class people or elites are actually the trustees of people's conscience, people's trust. That we'll have to understand. So in the present day socio-political context, when there is intense competition between political parties, intense competition to come inside politics by all colors, like criminals, like bureaucrats, like, then we'll have to have some kind of value-based temperament, value-based personality, that is impartiality and non-partisanship. Otherwise, bureaucracy tend to favor clearly and directly, and then there will be very much interference inside, particularly the bureaucracy. Not from only the bureaucracy will be tilted towards politicians to gain much of the pie size, but also the politicians will interfere into the bureaucratic system, and then it will damage the public trust. It will damage the systematic and systemic approach in the longer term. That's why these are the foundational values, and we cannot compromise on that. So you can give example of, because this is like illustrative example, you can give example of voting system. Because non-partisanship and impartiality is there, vote counting, voting, and all these parameters and procedures are clearly towards no one party. Even if they are in power, they can only have certain decisions about dates and all. Otherwise, all the procedures are done partylessly, impartially, and non-partisanship. So both are there. Like impartiality is also having party question, non-partisanship is also having party question. But you will have to follow the democratic demands. You will have to follow the constitutional demand. You will have to follow the law of the land and legality. You will have to follow the rules and regulation. And most of all, in ethical question, you will have to follow the public interest and ethicality. Then only you will have the compact between the citizen and the service giver. That is like government and public will have a seemingly no trust issues. So in voting, you can give examples. In health, you can give example. In education, you can give example. Everywhere there is a kind of service or there is a question of goods. Definitely non-partisanship and impartiality is needed, because Indian Constitution also under Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, everywhere it is mentioned that impartiality and non-partisanship, on the basis of what? No religion, no caste, no sex, no place of birth. Nothing has to be discriminated if, until and unless it is the question of positive discrimination. So you will have to clarify that. Otherwise, you can illustrate n number of things through the examples. Clear?
Yeah, bro.
Okay. One of the tests of integrity is complete refusal to be compromised. Explain the reference to a real life example. Okay, see, this is very real question, tests of integrity. See, why this question has been asked? Because bureaucracy or politicians will say that it is the practical demand that we must have yes man attitude in bureaucracy, or at least in ministership also, there is yes man attitude in cabinet system, because you know that the prime ministers are very much heavyweight in Indian system of democracy. So what is the test of integrity? How we can check that integrity is integrity? So see, integrity definition tells the being integral, whole, not to be fragile and be broken into parts. It means what? It is the complete honesty and probity at all the levels, even when no one is seeing us. That is integrity. Integrity is just like a brick. If we break it, it becomes two bricks or half bricks, not the complete brick. So that is the test of integrity. So when you say that I was little bit favoring because I did something, you are making some excuses. So that's why integrity is integral whole without any exception. Even if you break 20% or 10% of the brick out of one whole brick, 100% brick, you are just breaking the brick. It means you are compromising the integrity of that brick. Okay. Or you can also tell one very good example that if we snatch only one, only one brick out of one very, good built structure, then also it is the compromised structure, or anybody can invade through that, the gap. So that is the question of integrity. And that is the real question. So what is the complete refusal to be compromised? Compromise is compromise irrespective of any question. Even if we are favoring any person who is the most needy, then also we are making the question of integrity. Why I'm saying that? Because you cannot have exception for one person, one party, one place, one thing or over other. If you give that kind of leeway to yourself, there is no definitional quality of integrity. It means you can have other qualities with you, like compassion, empathy, and other things. But you cannot put that basket inside integrity. Why so? Because integrity demands a complete rationality in 100% disposal of a particular element of honesty. Means, if somebody is asking you whether you did that work or not, you cannot say that 99% it is done, only 1% it is left. It means what? Still that is not done. Maybe that 1% is so much that 99% cannot do. It means what? Compromise in any sense in the question of integrity. So a particular example, real life example is like, even if a bureaucrat is being given a very good handsome job in any particular private company, they cannot refuse a little bit of a rule from the rule book. Means they cannot eliminate in the execution part a particular rule like 13(1)(a) subsection 1 subsection clause B. Okay. So some party will come and tell that that rule only don't follow. Otherwise, everything is good and you will be not caught off. Then also, because nobody is seeing here, but your conscience is telling that still that rule book says that particular rule must be applied, then you have to apply that rule. So complete refusal to be compromised means what? Even you cannot compromise 1% or 0.5%. Because that means checking your sense of probity, checking your sense of complete honesty without cover. Okay, so complete refusal to be compromised is one test of integrity. Real life examples of this test of integrity is what? Real life example is related to TN session during voting, reforms or election reforms. Then second example is related to Delhi Metro. When he was beforehand only he was finishing the job. So that is also one question. Then there are like several questions where the nexus between political parties and the bureaucrats are there. You cannot compromise on the basis of that particular political party by saying that it is doing good cause for India. That's why I did that. I did favor them because some religious element is there and I am liking that. So no personal value can be compromised. No professional value can be compromised. No public interest question can be compromised. So you will have to particularly be 100% sure about impartiality, non-partisanship, and other foundational values of bureaucracy. So definitely one of the biggest tests of integrity is the complete refusal to be compromised. So real life example is related to election campaigns, related to political parties having say in public affairs. Then police is very much important question. A police cannot compromise its integrity by saying that one criminal I will be favoring and another criminal I will be not favoring, because one criminal is very much dreaded one and another one is very much Indian one. We cannot do that like that. The judiciary question also, complete sense of integrity must be there. Otherwise, there will be compromise in the name of legality, in the name of several things we can compromise then. So real life example is coming from legislature, like asking question by taking cash, compromising on the security premises of parliamentarians and parliament. That is also one thing. Then compromising the internal security, compromising the works of police, compromising the work of officials at higher levels, policy making level, execution level, even at the lowest level, let's say. If you, even if the municipal corporations normal employee who is like sweeping the road, if they will not have integrity, public you can say public services will not be disposed in a better way. So these are the things where we are being shown that integrity is either the complete sense of accountability in your honesty, or otherwise it is not at all integrity. So the best test, or one of the best test of integrity, is complete refusal to be compromised at any sense possible. So you cannot be yes man, you cannot say yes without any cause, and you cannot compromise with any values or foundational values of public services or civil services. So that these things you will have to write here. Integrity you can define and then write about the qualities of integrity, what kind of premises integrity is built upon. You can give the example of brick. You can give example of well-built structures, how these are, put under damage when the integrity question comes. You can talk about engineering damages. You can talk about internal security damages. You can talk about compromise in the nature of policy making, compromise in the nature of decision making, delivery of services. All these places, n number of examples, real life examples are there under the tests of integrity. I'm recording, don't worry. You guys, the network is disconnecting again and again, but I will send you guys, all you guys, to follow the video recording. Don't worry. Then last, like this one only I will discuss right now. After that, we'll discuss next class. In looking for people to hire, you look for three qualities. See, hiring. Hiring is what? Hiring is basically a public relations exercise, first of all. You will have to look and go to media. You will have to publicize, and you will have to select from a pool of people who can work for the public interest, not their own private interest only. Why I'm saying only? Because there, where the HR works, it is based on policy. HR policy is based upon organizational policy. So organizational policy always looks for those people who can let go little bit of their self and who can be satisfied with little bit of self. How? Because their self cause is related to particular dispersal of the emoluments and the services to their, the payment and all those things. But most of the work they are doing cannot be compared with whatever they are being provided with. Particularly in the sense of government, we are not paying the employees or human resources in the way private industry is doing. So what things we are particularly seeing? So we see that whether they are having integrity or not. This type of thing is also being questioned by Kautilya, that a public servant must be having integrity. Otherwise, he will be sucking the whole blood through the organization, just like a fish is taking the water and you don't know how much water it is taking. So integrity and honesty, utmost honesty, particularly the loyalty to the organization also is must. Then what is the intelligence? So there are two type of intelligence. One is emotional intelligence and one is normal intelligence. What we call is intelligence quotient, IQ. So EQ and IQ must be balanced. Why intelligence is necessary? Because you must have aptitude and skills to deliver the benefits to the people. You know the policy well, execute the policy well. You also have the training at your disposal to completely surrender yourself into the very absurd demands of the environment. Like when you are having disaster, you must do disaster management according to the disaster management principles. So definitely intelligence is needed. And the third thing you have to see is energy. Why energy is needed? Because human resources must be always young, or otherwise they must be fired out. That is the philosophy of HR management everywhere in each and every organization. Why so? Because a disabled person must be given pension, must be given all the things, but cannot be put under the work of organization. Why so? I'm saying disabled in the sense that the functionality of work, not in the sense of disability in the physical self. Any physically damaged person or physically, less abled person can work. But energy in the sense that they must have a proper dispersal and disposal of energy with them, that they are not too aged to perform a kind of activity which is needed for huge and large exercises of public benefit. Like if you are talking about disaster management, a person who is very old, maybe handy, may need some kind of support from other side. They may not provide even the 50% of the capacity a normal person can provide. So that's why energy is very important at work. So the timing, the space, the effort needs energy. So what Warren Buffett is saying, and if they do not have the first, the other two will kill you. Why? Because integrity, honesty, loyalty to the organization is must. You see Mahabharata, you see Ramayana, you see any kind of epic also, you will find that those people who are absurd people, not having the man or women of integrity, will make wars out of the normal words also. So definitely in public organizations, we cannot expect the public officials at larger level who are dealing with public causes having malized mindset. And that's why we see a whole lot of corruption in Indian system, because we are compromising in integrity. And the biggest example is MTNL. The biggest example is BSNL. The biggest example is railways. The biggest examples are many more, where public organizations succumbed to the pressure of scams and schemes. That's why integrity is must. Huh? The other two will kill you. So definitely integrity is must. We must have ethics, morality, integrity, other than the intelligence factor. So it is a very, very compact between emotional intelligence and intelligence quotient, IQ, EQ. And it is a very much important compact between ethics and legality. It is very much compact between the energy and intelligence versus ethics. So we must keep a balance between all these things. From history, we see several examples like colonial mindset was having a very good intelligence and energy in business realms, but they were not having integrity for the people. Similarly, we see Mughals. Similarly, we see invaders who looted India through intelligence and energy, but they were not having integrity. Similarly, we see in bureaucracy, we have good people who are having intelligence, energy, toppers, gold medalists, but they are not having integrity. So if you are compromising your integrity, then you are compromising with the foundational values of civil services or public services. You are a public servant. You are a servant of public interest. So you must not compromise general interest and public interest. And for that, integrity is must. So present day scenario, each and every sphere, you can give example. Find some good examples that you can write here. That Satyam scam, Harshad Mehta scam, several scams you can write about. You can also write about Manrega scam by this Pooja Singhal case. Several cases are there. And you can also talk about good people like Kiran Bedi. She shown the integrity, highest kind of integrity to pull off the car of Prime Minister also. So I'm giving you some classical example, but there are like n number of examples we have talked about in our book also. I have given to you. In case studies, you can find several examples and that you can write here also in the first part. I'm up to writing this one. So during the prelims only, I will be finishing this one. So you don't have to worry about the first part also. I will be finishing this book earlier. Huh. So this much only for today. If you have time, then I can have discussions tomorrow also, even if for half an hour if you want. If you don't want, then next week we'll do. Okay.